Since the start of the year, I've been trying to qualify to represent England Masters in my age group over the 5k distance.
Right, is this?
That's the start. That's the start, and you're going that way.
Aha, yes, remember the 5k at Thameside where we turned up late to the start, where despite pushing hard, I ended up with a time probably not good enough to qualify. So, yeah, I wasn't going to be deterred and I entered another 5k at York 6 days later. Now, this one was much better and I finished in 21:10, which still remains the fastest time I've run this year. But as qualification times were down to Para 10 rankings, I wanted to try to run a quicker time. So I gave myself one more shot and I jumped into the Yeovil 5k before I had to submit my application to see if I could qualify. Sadly, I didn't run a faster time and I didn't make any improvements on the 21:10. In fact, I ran 21:19. So then it was down to waiting and finding out if I was quick enough to qualify for the 5k championships. And I was absolutely delighted when I found out I had qualified, and so then it was off to Shrewsbury last Saturday for the 5k championships of English Masters against the Welsh Masters. Warming up, I was a little bit nervous as I knew I was going to be one of the slowest in the women's race. And the age was 35 to 64. Before my race, I was very impressed watching the 65 race, which was a mixed race and included the top female 75 in the country in a very impressive 21.5 minutes. So now off to my race, and although very nervous, I was also very excited and determined to commit to the race. As well as being an individual race, it's also a team race, so I wanted to run as best I could for the team. Setting off, I wanted to commit to staying with the others in my age category. Even though I know I was one of the slowest qualifiers on paper, I knew this was going to be tough.
In modern running parlance, it's known as taking a swing, I believe.
So commit I did, and I went through the first kilometre in a fast for me 3:59. Oh dear, oh dear. So the race was over a 5-lap cycle circuit, which was not flat and had a tight loop at the bottom corner. It started on a slide down and this attracted the sun and it did get really warm. Then it went up on the opposite side where thankfully we did get a bit of shade. By the first bend I knew I'd committed a little bit fast and my throat felt like sandpaper. Where was it going to go from here? So this race was a slightly different experience, racing in the championships which just contained the Masters runners as opposed to last year at Mid Cheshire, which was an open road race. You can see here in the second kilometre I was already starting to strain and overstride. So I went through the second kilometre in 4:12, which would have been my goal pace. The support was absolutely amazing around the course, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everybody who shouted out my name. Quite a few of you who are viewers of the channel, so thanks for that. You really did give me a boost and keep me going when it started to feel really tough. And it did really start to feel tough, and you can see here with my kilometre split being 4:20, which is considerably slower than the previous two. Things were really not feeling good at all at this point. My breathing was out of control. My throat just felt like sandpaper. Now I do suffer with hay fever at this time of the year, and I think that the air quality was getting to me. So yeah, my body was feeling pretty ropey. If I'm truthful, I felt like I needed to stop, but obviously I couldn't stop. I'm wearing an England vest. I wanted to do the best I could on the day, so I kept pushing on as hard as I could. The next 2 kilometres are a kind of blur. I'd lost contact with everybody else. At times I couldn't see anybody. Thought I was on my own out there. But yeah, I just kept pushing through. It was good to see John on the course. He did give me a boost every now and again down on the corners. He'd tell me to keep digging in. I told him I felt sick. I had a stitch. All the excuses were coming out. But he said, just do your best, keep pushing. And keep pushing I did.
Sit round the bed.
And around that bend was my favourite bit as we flowed gradually downhill. Well, it wasn't a downhill, but it was a little bit of a slope. It did allow my body to relax a little bit. However, when you get to the bottom, there is a very tight hairpin bend. And at this point, my body was not going around there with any kind of grace. In fact, I didn't show any kind of grace at all, I think, in my running style on this race. My hips were collapsing, I was overstriding. And I think I'd gone into kind of panic, trying to force the pace rather than let the pace come to me. I have to say, it felt like one of my worst 5 kilometres. It was my worst 5 kilometre this year. So yeah, so the final split was the same as the fourth one, 4:25, as I desperately clung on and was praying for that finish to come.
Well done, all the finish, keep it going! Come on, Emma Collins! Well done, England! Come on, Emma, last one, come on! Come on, Emma, well done.
Terrible. Oh my God. It was lovely to speak to people afterwards, fellow athletes who took part in the championships today. All of us having a fantastic day, really. So although my run wasn't the greatest, I still had a fantastic day catching up with people, watching other people's races, and that's part of the fun of going to these events. Not just putting on the vest, but seeing other people run and, you know, enjoying what they do and giving them the support. So yes, it wasn't the time I wanted. You know, I would have liked to have been a lot quicker than I was. But I did have a fantastic day, and I want to look at some of the positives as well as the negatives of that day. So number one, my pre-race day fuel was very good. I got everything right. In fact, I got the day before right, and, you know, I was ready to rumble. With it being an afternoon race, it was tricky to get the fuel in right, but I had porridge in the morning, and I had a top-up snack about 11 o'clock, and I also took a gel about 15 minutes before the race so that I didn't feel hungry. I know it's only 5k, but because you're going to run sort of quite late in the afternoon, you can actually feel a little bit hungry, and I didn't want to feel hungry on the run. It ended up feeling quite uncomfortable anyhow, and that was the last thing I wanted, was to feel hungry and uncomfortable. So the next thing that went right was the taper. Now, normally I don't taper off much for a 5k, but because it was England Masters, I decided I'd have a much easier week, and I did, including not doing the park run on the Saturday morning and opting for a natural wake up, a lie-in, which, you know, was great because my legs felt actually fresh on the day. So I don't think it was anything to do with the freshness of my legs. I do think it was something to do with the air quality. I have a very mild asthma, so, you know, the taper went well, and it was other things I think that conspired against me, which I'll talk about in a moment. So the third thing that went well, and I can't be faulted for this, was my application. As I said during the race, I felt really rough from about 2 kilometres on. My breathing felt like sandpaper, and I kept pushing. I was wearing an England vest. I was very proud to be there, and I just wanted to do the best I could. And so I didn't stop pushing, and I came away with a decent time for me, but it certainly wasn't the time I wanted. But yes, application was spot on. So let's talk about the things that conspired against me. Well, I think number one, and this is my own doing, was I think I went off slightly fast. As I said at the beginning of the video, I wanted to commit to this race, and commit I did. Unfortunately, I got caught up with the crowd and didn't really look at my watch. I don't look at my watch very often, as I've said many times on other videos, because I tend to run to feel. But I think with my legs being so fresh, maybe from the taper, they actually went with the crowd. Now, the thing about this race is there are women running 17 minutes through to, obviously, women who were slightly a bit slower than me. And I was right in the mix. So my pace was around 20-minute pace when I set off, and I didn't look. I should have looked, because by the time I got to the first bend, that hairpin bend, I said my throat felt like sandpaper. Now, I do suffer with hay fever and exercise-induced asthma, and it normally occurs around this time of year. So that's my second point then of what conspired against me, because my breathing started to get quite out of control, and I do think then it was difficult. I felt like I had asthma coming on, but I had to push through that. It wasn't bad, but you can hear at points in the course when I'm running around that the breathing just was not under control at all. So that was my second thing that conspired against me, the fact that I do suffer with my breathing at this time of year, which I don't think was helped by the time of day, because by 2 o'clock on this particular day, it really was quite warm. Now in the morning, it was actually chilly, but by the time we got to do the race, oh boy, did that sun come out and beat down on us. And it didn't do me any good. Now I know it was the same for everybody, but we all react differently to conditions. And for me, 2 p.m. in the sunshine was not my favourite part of the day. So I think, you know, that got to me a little bit as well. But at the end of the day, I was wearing an England vest. I was representing my age group, and I had the opportunity to run on this day, and I'm not going to moan about it. It was a fantastic day. I loved every minute of it. Well, maybe not every minute of it. It was pretty tough out there, but it was only 5k, and anybody can suffer for 5k. So thank you, England Masters, for giving me the opportunity, and I hope to be doing many more of these races in the future. In fact, the next one up is not too far away. It is in June. So I hope that you will join me for Swansea Half Marathon in June. Until next time, guys, keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on.